Welcome to the next leg of our mountain journey through these beautiful Uncompahgre and San Juan mountains to the town of Montrose, once home to the nomadic Ute Nation. First to pick up the medical grade exercise bike, then on to the Ute Museum and Chief Ouray and wife Chipetta's ranch and memorial. Recorded history in this area begins with the two bands of Ute people residing in the area during the summer, the Parian Utes, meaning elk people, who lived on the North Gunnison River, and the Uncompahgre living in the Gunnison Valley, who had been living here since the 16th century. The Spanish began colonizing New Mexico in the 16th century and made their way into the Ute territory, beginning of the Utes' ultimate removal from the land. In 1891 to 1892, two forest reserves were formed, White River Forest Reserve and Battlement Mesa Forest Reserve, a beginning of a new approach to land and resource use and protection in Colorado. Ouray, or the Arrow, was born in 1833 near Taos, New Mexico, of a Jicarilla Apache father and a Tigbachi Ute mother. As a child, he was adopted by a Mexican family and raised in the Spanish language and Roman Catholic. Not until his late teens did Ouray fully enter into the life of his mother's people. Yet so great was his renown as a warrior that by the mid-1860s he was chief of the Tigbachi Utes, and I'm sorry if I messed that up, and the United States regarded him as a leader of the Ute Nation. Ouray spoke 4 languages and was a man of great wisdom, determination, and courage. He fought to preserve the very soul of his people, a cause he lived and died for. Ouray and Chipetta's farm. Ouray and Chipetta settled here in the Uncompahgre Valley sometime in the 1860s. When the Los Pinos Agency moved to the valley in 1875, Ouray was already working a 500-acre farm and living in a 6-room adobe house located 1/4 mile north of this point. This Ouray and Chipetta filled with chairs, iron beds, silverware, and china, a piano, and even hired a Hispanic servant who answered the ring of a silver bell and drove a fancy carriage. All this was in the vain hope that by showing government officials Utes were capable of adapting to changing their ways, their people might escape reservation life and retain their western slope homeland. Chipetta, 1843 to 1924. She was born a Kiowa Apache but raised a Tigbachi Ute. In 1859, she was married Ouray, and the two of them became inseparable. Photographs of Chipetta reveal a woman who appears utterly serene and at peace with herself. The historical record speaks of her dignity, her devotion to her husband and family, and her attention to the needs of others. Like Ouray, she apparently moved easily among whites who spoke glowingly of her beauty and queenly demeanor. After Ouray died in 1880, Chipetta was forced to leave the farm and take up life with other Tigbachi Utes on the bleak reservation lands of eastern Utah, where she died in 1924. Later, her remains were moved here to the farm she loved. The story of Ouray's life is a deeper tale than what we have read. When Ure and his brother Kinche were young, they were sent to Taos, New Mexico to become servants to wealthy landowners, Padre Martinez, for 7 years. They worked for the Martinez clan and learned how the ruling classes conducted business. In 1850, Ure returned to his hometown of Abiquiu to work for Martinez relatives. His ability to speak Apache, Ute, Spanish, and English would soon change his position in society. In 1851, Ure moved to Colorado and married an Apache named Black Mare. In 1857, they had their first child, a son named Palone. That same year, Black Mare passed of unknown causes, whereas he married a younger Apache woman named Chipeta. Chipeta was raised by a Ute tribe at first. She had originally been chosen to care for Palone after Black Mare's death. The Lakota kidnapped Palone in 1862, but his life after capture remains unsure. In 1863 was a very important year for Ure and Chipeta. On October 5th, 1863, Ure helped complete a treaty at Caños in the San Luis Valley, serving as a representative for the Tabagachi, with only a few from other Ute bands in attendance. Ure was a prominent signer of a treaty that relinquished all Ute land east of the Continental Divide in an area of Middle Park to give up all Ute land already occupied by white miners and homesteaders, known as the Treaty of 1864. When Congress approved the treaty and monetary and property to the Ute Nation, also the beginning of the forced removal of many Ute nations from Colorado. On March 2nd, 1868, Ure was made chief of all the Ute lands. He helped another treaty meeting attended by more Ute Nation members to create a massive reservation on the western slope for Colorado Utes. Representatives from 7 Ute bands, Commissioner of Indian Affairs Nathaniel G. Taylor, Alexander Hunt, Kit Carson, and others met in Washington, D.C. The reservation to have 2 agencies, one for the 3 bands of the northern Utes near Meeker, Colorado, and one for the southern Utes on the Los Pinos River near Durango, Colorado. The new reservation covered some 20 million acres, but soon the U.S. government asked for more Ute land. The Colorado Gold Rush had passed without incident, but in the 1870s, gold was found and the prospectors wanted to claim their riches. The government had ordered the miners out of Ute territory, but they refused to leave. The Ute Nation refused to sell any more land, but soon after attending a meeting with Felix R. Brunut, chairman of the Board of Indian Commissioners, who persuaded Chief Ure to sell the San Juans if the government reunited him with his son, which did fail, but Ure found Felix to be sincere and helped him to induce the other Ute bands to relinquish a 4 million acre piece of San Juans in exchange for hunting rights in the mountains, an annual payment of $25,000. But in 1871, the U.S. government declared that they would no longer recognize the sovereignty of Indian nations. Instead, the treaty was to be known as the Brunot Agreement, signed in 1873, including an annual stipend of $1,000 for Ure, as well as land for him and Chipeta in Montrose, Colorado. The Ute populations were having difficulties adjusting to life on the reservation. In the fall of 1879, Chief Ure found himself in the middle of a dispute between the Ute and the whites. In 1879, Nathan C. Meeker was appointed Indian agent of the White River Indian Agency to manage the Yampa and Grand River Utes. An overzealous individual with little understanding of Ute culture pushing the Utes out of their hunter-gatherer way of life into Christianity and farming. The Utes resisted at every turn. In 1879, Meeker requested federal troops to come safeguard the agency, but the Utes saw this as a threat, rebelling, killing Meeker and 10 others, and taking the agent's family captive. The captives included families of the slain White River employees, Meeker's wife and adult daughter, Josephine. They were kept prisoner for 3 weeks until negotiating their release by U.S. agents, then taken to Chief Urey and Chepetta's ranch. 12 Ute men were taken to Washington, D.C. for sentencing, but acquitted of charges. No more land was offered up for the taking after the Meeker incident. The U.S. government wanted the Ute Nation out of Colorado. March 6, 1880, Chief Urey and 9 others signed another agreement to move the White River Utes to the Unitah Reservation, a 1.9 million acre piece of land named the Urey Reservation after the infamous chief. In 1880, the Utes didn't want to move. Chief Urey traveled to southwest Colorado to speak with Southern Ute leader Ignacio, hoping to gain his help in signing another peace agreement. But at 47 years old, Chief Urey had been suffering from Bright's disease, a kidney ailment due to high blood pressure. Suffering for at least 5 years, he fell terribly ill on the Southern Ute Reservation and passed on August 24, 1880. In 1925, Chief Urey's friends recovered his body from a secret burial site and reburied him in a Ute cemetery near Ignacio, just across the Los Pinos River from where he died. In the end, the Uncompahgre Utes didn't want to leave their Colorado homelands, but finally did agree to go along with 1,000 plus more troops to usher them along their 350-mile journey to the new reservation. The Southern Utes were allowed to stay in Colorado. Chepetta lived 34 years longer than her husband, living in near poverty. Of course, the U.S. government never fully compensated her or finished her beautiful home as promised. She passed on August 12, 1924 at 81 years old, buried in a shallow traditional grave. In 1924, her body was exhumed by tribal members and placed in a tomb at this Urey Memorial Park, Montrose, Colorado. Chief Urey's legacy was complicated. He had been reluctant at first, having to face an inevitable task of deciding how to protect his people's lands or making a dangerous stand that might get many of his people killed, often skillfully defiant to protect his lands, but capitulating to the white interest when the path would lead to warfare and death. For better or worse, Chief Urey opted for peace in an otherwise violent and turbulent time. Desperately disappointed, we unfortunately arrived to the Ute Museum at 4:29 and they closed at 4:30. But I will show you a few pictures of the beautiful historical Ute Nation artifacts they have inside. The first settlers came to the Uncompahgre Valley in the 1870s, but couldn't purchase land until the Ute Nations were removed to the Utah Reservation by 1881. The first stake driven, and in 1882, the town was named Pomona, Uncompahgre Town, than Montrose, after a favorite character in Sir Walter Scott's novel, The Legend of Montrose. Originally founded to provide supplies to the miners, then after the mining declined, agriculture became the primary economy in a fertile valley to produce fruits, grains, and livestock. The Gunnison Tunnel, constructed to provide vital irrigation water to the valley, opened in 1909, highlighted by a visit from President Taft, signaling a new era of agricultural production in Montrose. In 1882, the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad Company built its narrow-gauge mainline railroad through Montrose on its way from Denver to Salt Lake City, Utah, to be changed to standard gauge by 1906. Montrose considered a thriving gateway to the many wonders of western Colorado. Chief Ouray has been memorialized here, next to the love of his life, Chipeta, at their ranch, as a Ute museum and gardens. Chief Ouray was buried after his death at a secret site according to Ute custom. 45 years later, Chief John McCook and Chief Buckskin Charlie, or Sapia, leader of the Southern Ute tribe, last of the great tribal Ute leaders, recovered Ouray's bones and placed them here. Chief John wished upon his death to be placed by his sister Chipeta. Chief Buckskin Charlie helped lead the rescue of the women and children abducted during the Meeker Massacre, succeeding Ouray as the official treaty negotiator. Chief Buckskin and his son, Antonio Buck Jr., the last chief of the Southern Utes, are interred in Ouray Memorial Cemetery near Durango, Colorado, about 2 hours south of Montrose. Chief Ouray has an amazing stained glass window in the Denver State Capitol building, forever depicted as a negotiator for peace. The only One Nation person to have a stained glass in the Capitol. In 1985, Chipeta was inducted into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame. I would like to recite a Ute prayer for the memory of Chief Ouray and Chipeta, or Singing Bird, as she was known to her Ute nation. Earth, teach me quiet, as the grasses are still with new light. Earth, teach me suffering, as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me humility, as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth, teach me caring, as mothers nurture their young. Earth, teach me courage, as a tree that stands alone. Earth, teach me limitation, as the ant that crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom, as the eagle that soars in the sky. Earth, teach me acceptance, as the leaves that die each fall. Earth, teach me renewal, as the seed that rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself, as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness, as dry fields weep with rain. In memory of Chipeta, wife of Chief Ouray, teepee erected over Ouray and Chipeta's Spring, 1924, by the Dar Permanent Marketplace by Umpqua Valley Chapter, NSDAR, 2009.
prevail to her.
Let's hope so. Rose quartz. So this is a memorial garden, as well as showing all the plants that the Ute people used to gather in prayer for Grandmother Earth. Flower, stem, and leaf, and root. The Utes live in a land of diversity, from dry desert scrub to verdant river valleys, from dense forests to high mountain meadows. They had to know where to find plants and animals, when to gather or harvest them, and how to use them. Even today, Ute elders pass this knowledge to younger generations. Plants are used to create everyday objects, from baskets to sandals and arrows to cradle boards. They made these things all, or in part, from various plants. Old Spanish Trail historic route. The Ute garden, how they use plants nutritionally, medicinally, and culturally. The Ute Indians who lived here among the Uncompahgre River harvested and used plants like the ones in this demonstration garden. We'll just leave it with you. The Dominguez Escalante expedition. Just south of here on August 27, 1776, the Spanish explorers Dominguez and Escalante met a Ute Indian whom they called El Sordo, the Deaf One. They were seeking a route west, the two Spaniards explained, and wanted information about the lands. El Sordo was unhelpful. "You learned nothing new," Dominguez wrote irritably afterward, "except to have suffered from the heat of the sun." Next 5 months, the two Franciscan priests and their 10-man expedition would endure heat, cold, thirst, hunger, and various other miseries. The travelers followed the 1765 trail of an early explorer, Juan Rivera, into present-day Colorado. They reached the Green River, where they turned west into present-day Utah. By late October, with California nowhere in sight, they turned back, skirting the Grand Canyon and Monument Valley. They had walked more than 1,700 miles, and although they did not reach California, they added greatly to the store of geographical knowledge about the West. Later explorers, including legendary John C. Fremont, would rely on Dominguez and Escalante's discoveries. Thank you, Chief Ure, for your stories to the Ute people. Let's go. Thank you for joining us on our little road trip. I love telling these stories and stopping and looking at things I've been wanting to see for a very long time. So today we've been able to see many things, and I can bring you many tales from beyond. So thank you, Chipetta and Chief Ure, for everything you did for the Ute people and the earth. Many more tales to come. So let's journey on. Okay, let's go. Now we must leave the quaint and peaceful Chief Ure and Chipetta's ranch and gardens. As another cold front rolls onward towards us, we must quickly head east through Gunnison towards Denver. Gunnison originated as a silver mining camp and was named for Captain John William Gunnison, an Indian fighter and railroad surveyor who had explored the area in 1853. A city developed as a trade center for mining, farming, and recreation. Gold was first found along the Taylor River here in Gunnison in 1861. Soon we were surprised by the vast numbers of elk, deer, antelope, and bighorn sheep grazing together at times. This Gunnison Basin is currently home to 15,000 to 20,000 elk and closely monitored through the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, using GPS data to create habitat utilization maps, charting the elk movement and habitat usages for planning the elk management strategies, evaluate their habitat and identify their migration corridors. Such as in 2019, 35 more elk were collared, totaling 200 elk to monitor for the study, to be updated in 2023, and then to manage the herds from the study findings to 2033. Wanting to keep the herd stabilized at closer to 20,000 totaled in the 3 herds ranging in the Gunnison Valley. To collar 80 to 100 elk and about 60 calves on an annual basis, managing the local population models. Wildlife population in Colorado wild country really is what makes Colorado special, as written in a Gunnison Times article, keeping an eye on maintaining these populations, especially in the face of increasing human presence on the landscape. Other wildlife populations here include mule deer, pronghorn, bighorn sheep, mountain goats, moose and coyotes, mountain lions, grouse, waterfowl, and other small game. Living on the plains and foothills of Denver, we were excited to see these majestic mountains of our beautiful Colorado high country. Soon we plan to make another trip west on these journeys of tales from beyond, this mountain adventure being our favorite since our travels to Arkansas in September. Thank you for joining us on our adventure west. Stay tuned for more amazing tales of our extraordinary people, places, and stories of our world. Thank you for watching as we continue through these beautiful mountains towards Denver and home. Please like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you know anyone who likes documentary content, horse videos, meditative content, and other fun films I have on my channel, please help me by sharing. It really helps me on my journalism journey, fulfilling a dream of mine I have had since 1991. Where instead I got married, flew to Europe for 7 years, explored 15 countries, returned home to raise our children and fulfill as many goals and dreams as I could continue. The plans for my channel have me very excited for our future. Thank you for coming along with us, and I hope I can give you inspiration to manifest your dreams as well. We travel through the beautiful winter wonderland of Dillon Reservoir as a man-made body of water surrounded by ski resorts like Copper Mountain, Keystone, Silverthorne, Summit, and Arapahoe. Damming the Blue River, moving the historical town of Dillon 4 times, with the original town now underneath 250 feet of water. As we had just passed Blue Mesa Reservoir with the remnants of 3 towns underneath its icy, cold, deep waters. To generate hydroelectric power in the 1960s, now known as the top water sports destination, a severe drought came through the region, losing about 40% of its water, exposing the town's streets and foundations underneath. Every winter in the town of New Dillon, a beautiful array and contest of ice castles is on display all winter season. Now we will show you all the sightings of elk and deer we captured, the dramatic views we pass as we travel, and pictures of this region's highlights. Also a few images of Dillon ice castles. Thank you for staying along with us, and until next time, you don't have to be extraordinary. Be a little extraordinary. Beauty is in how you want your world to be seen.